The storm didn't just fall around her, it collapsed over her like the sky had given up holding itself together. Kayla ran. Bare feet slapping against mud and shattered leaves. Her torn gown dragging behind her like a ghost desperate to pull her back. Her breath tore out of her chest in sharp, uneven bursts, each one louder than the last, like her lungs were arguing with her will to survive. Rain hammered her skin, cold, needle-sharp, merciless. It felt personal, as if the sky itself had chosen sides, and not hers. The forest blurred around her, a swirl of black trunks and whipping branches. Every step felt like a question: can you keep going? Can you survive this? Do you even deserve to? Thunder cracked overhead, so close it rattled the ground under her feet, syncing perfectly with the panic pounding inside her ribs. Her heartbeat sounded like a desperate fist banging on a locked door. She didn't know if it belonged to her anymore, or the wolf trapped inside her, clawing, begging, screaming. Branches scraped her arms, thin, sharp fingers that didn't scratch so much as accuse. The forest wasn't offering shelter tonight. It wanted her to surrender. Dragged back. Delivered like a trembling gift to the alpha who insisted she belonged to him. But she would rather die out here, cold, alone, forgotten, than be bound to a man whose touch felt like possession instead of love. Behind her, voices tore through the storm. This way. Don't lose her scent. Bring her back to the ceremony. That last part hit her spine like a lash. Ceremony. Such a beautiful word for something so cruel. Dawn was creeping closer with every ragged breath she dragged in. And at dawn, unless she escaped, unless she vanished into the night, she would become the bride of a man she feared more with every heartbeat. Her steps faltered as another voice rose, deeper, commanding, furious. Fan out. She can't get far in this weather. For a fleeting second, she hated how right he was. Her legs shook. Her chest burned. Her wet gown tangled around her knees. Her wolf, her last line of defense, remained silent, curled back deep inside her as though it doubted her right to survive. Lightning split the sky in a violent white flash. In that heartbeat of brightness, she saw everything: the slick mud ahead, the twisting roots, the fog creeping low to the ground like hands waiting to grab her ankles. And she saw, just for a moment, the shapes chasing her. Dark. Determined. Shadows with yellow eyes that cut through rain like lanterns. Her breath hitched. They're too close. Her palms burned, suddenly, fiercely. Not metaphorically. Not fearfully. Literally. A searing brightness spilled from them like silver fire desperate to escape. Sparks licked at her fingers, hot enough to warm the air around her despite the freezing rain. She jerked, startled by herself. By the thing inside her. By the power she didn't understand. When her hands brushed the trunk of a fallen tree as she vaulted over it, steam exploded upward. Burning. Hissing. Alive. She snatched her hand back. No, not now. Please, not now, she whispered, stumbling. Because the truth was simple and devastating. They didn't fear her because she was weak. They feared her because she wasn't. At least, not entirely. If she could control the power flickering inside her, she might have been a threat they couldn't cage. But the sparks were wild, unpredictable. Sometimes they saved her. Sometimes they hurt the ones she cared about. And that was the part her pack whispered about in dark corners, the girl whose touch burned. The girl who could destroy. She ran harder, as if she could outrun the truth clinging to her skin. But the weather changed with her emotions. She could feel it, how the storm swelled when fear pulsed in her throat. How the fog thickened when doubt curled inside her. How lightning cracked whenever panic clawed its way up her spine. As if the sky itself mirrored the mess inside her chest. She stumbled over a root hidden under a thick layer of wet leaves. Her ankle twisted. Pain shot up her leg. The world tilted, and suddenly she wasn't running anymore. She was falling. The ground crumbled beneath her foot, a slick edge of mud giving way. She tumbled down a ravine, scraped by rocks, branches, and cold, uncaring thorns. When she finally hit the bottom, the impact ripped the breath from her lungs. For a moment she lay there, mud smeared across her skin, hair plastered to her face, rain dripping into her open mouth as she gasped for air. Her senses spun. The forest roared above her like an angry god. Her body trembled, not just from cold but from exhaustion, the kind that sinks its teeth deep and refuses to let go. When she tried to push herself up, her hand slipped. Mud slid between her fingers. Blood from a cut on her forehead trickled into her eye. She blinked it away. Her voice came out thin, shaky, torn from a place she rarely let anyone see. I can't go back. I won't. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a vow meant for dramatic effect. It was a confession. Raw. Unfiltered. Honest the way honesty is only when you're alone in the dark with no one left to impress. She dragged herself up onto her knees, one shaky breath at a time. Her body protested every movement, like it had already written her obituary and thought she should accept it. But she didn't. She wiped the blood from her forehead, the rain washed the rest away. Above her, distant voices shifted, less confident now. Still searching. Still hunting. But for the moment, there was distance. Just enough. The ravine had swallowed her fall, covering her tracks, dampening her scent. It wasn't safety, but it was a pause. And sometimes a pause was all a hunted girl needed to decide her fate again. She pressed her back to the cold earth, breath slowing, heart still racing. For a few precious seconds, she let herself feel everything. The fear. The anger. The exhaustion. The small, flickering hope that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't doomed yet. And then, softly, quietly, a whisper brushed the air. Not one of the hunters. Not an enemy. A voice carried only to the viewer, as though spoken right beside them, sharing a secret meant for them alone. If you're already gripping the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe to Floxy's Shifter Romance Tales. Stories like these burn brightest when you're here to witness them. The storm raged on. The girl in the ravine struggled to her feet. And somewhere above her, hunters prowled the darkness. The forest swallowed Kayla's breath long before it swallowed her footsteps. Cold air scraped her lungs as she ran, branches clawing at her arms, mud gripping her ankles. Every sound behind her felt sharper, closer, the hounds, the men, the cruel voices calling her a stolen prize they refused to lose. Her legs burned. Her wolf should have risen. Should have protected her. Should have freed her. But tonight, her wolf stayed buried deep, trapped beneath fear she could not shake. Her foot slipped on wet leaves. She caught herself against a tree, breath trembling. Rain seeped through her clothes, chilling her to the bone. She pressed her forehead to the bark. She couldn't run any farther. Not like this. Not alone. A crack of a branch behind her made her jerk upright, but this sound wasn't wild or frantic. It was steady. Slow. As if whoever came wasn't searching. But approaching with certainty. Kayla's pulse spiked. The forest was silent again, the silence too complete. Too expectant. Her hands shook as she backed away from the tree. Another shift in the darkness. A shadow broke free from the deeper black, moving without rushing, without hesitation. Tall. Still. Like the night itself had shaped a body and stepped forward. Kayla stumbled back. And froze. The figure stood several paces away, silent as the rain sliding off his cloak. The hood was low, but she could see the rigid lines of his posture. His presence was heavy enough to press on her chest. For a heartbeat she wondered if she'd imagined him. But then he lifted his head. His eyes glowed. Gold. Bright. Controlled but burning underneath. Not human. Not safe. She took one step backward. He took one step forward. The space between them tightened like a net. Kayla's throat closed, fear and instinct twisting inside her. She tried to summon her wolf, even a flicker, but her body stayed painfully human, trembling. She pressed her back to a tree, palms damp. Her voice came out barely a whisper. "Who are you?" His answer cut through the rain, low and steady. "Kayla." The sound of her name hit her harder than any weapon. Her breath left her in a sharp exhale. She had never seen him. Never met him. Never spoken her name aloud since the chase began. Yet he knew. Her pulse hammered so loudly she felt it in her ears. She wanted to run again, but something in his gaze held her still. Not force, something else. Recognition. As if he had been expecting her. He stepped out from beneath the shadows. A black cloak hung from his shoulders, soaked through, edges dripping. The fabric clung to him, outlining broad shoulders and a frame built through strength, not vanity. Rain slid down the dark fabric, making him look as if he had risen from the storm itself. Lightning cracked above them for a moment. In that flash she saw his face. Sharp. Defined. A jaw set with tension he didn't try to hide. A mouth that looked like it rarely softened. A scar brushing his cheekbone like a reminder of battles he'd walked away from. And those eyes. They weren't just glowing, they were watching her with a focus that felt too personal, too intense. As if he wasn't just seeing her, but reading her. Kayla swallowed hard. "How do you know my name?" He didn't answer immediately. He studied her. Not the way a hunter studies prey, but the way a man studies a truth he didn't want to face yet. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, controlled. "They were too close. I couldn't let them take you." Her breath hitched. "You followed them?" "Followed you," he corrected. Wind moved between them, cold and sharp. Her fingers curled into fists as she tried to process his words. She forced her voice to steady. "Why?" His gaze flickered. Not uncertainty, conflict. Then another branch cracked in the distance. The hunters were still coming. Kayla tried to push away from the tree, tried again to call her wolf. Her bones heated. A tremor ran through her. But nothing shifted. Panic tightened her throat. Her nails dug into her palms. "Shift," she whispered to herself. "Shift. Please." Her knees buckled. The ground rushed up toward her. But strong hands caught her before she hit the earth. He held her with surprising gentleness, one arm bracing her back, the other steadying her shoulders. His touch burned against her cold skin, a heat that didn't feel natural. She fought to pull away, but her legs refused to obey. A wave of exhaustion washed over her, heavier than fear. "Don't," she rasped. "Let me go." "I can't," he said quietly. His voice wasn't commanding. It was something else. Something almost reluctant. Kayla forced her gaze up to him. Rain dripped from her lashes. "Who are you?" His jaw clenched, as if the answer pained him. Instead of replying, he shifted his hold, lifting her slightly before setting her back on her feet. He didn't let her fall. His hand stayed firm, steady. She felt a faint tremor under his touch, not fear, but frustration he was trying to hide. He finally exhaled, the sound sharp. "They shouldn't have hunted you," he said. "Not tonight." The words weren't casual. They were edged with something personal, something old and scarred. Kayla caught the flicker in his eyes again, a shadow of memories, buried deep but not forgotten. Her voice softened despite herself. "You know them?" His gaze hardened. "I know what they are." A distant howl echoed through the trees, dragging both their attention back to the forest. The scent of damp earth thickened, mixing with the metallic tang of danger. He moved closer, lowering his voice. "You don't have the strength to outrun them now." She stiffened. "I didn't ask for your help." His gaze locked onto hers. "You didn't have to." That single sentence carried weight she didn't understand, an unspoken connection she wasn't ready to acknowledge. Kayla drew in a shaky breath. If you know why they're after me, tell me. Another crack of a branch. Closer this time. His grip on her arms tightened. This isn't the place, he said. Not with them closing in. He moved his cloak aside and extended a hand. Not demanding. Not dominant. A choice. Her stomach twisted with fear, confusion, instinct. She wanted answers. But she also wanted to survive long enough to hear them. Kayla placed her trembling hand in his. The heat that rushed through her palm shot up her arm like a spark catching dry leaves. Her breath caught. He felt it too, his eyes flashed, not with surprise, but with something like confirmation. He pulled her gently to his side. Stay close. He led her through the trees, moving with silent precision. Even the forest seemed to shift around him, as if it recognized him. Branches that scratched her before now bent out of his way. Mud that tried to pull her down felt firmer under his steps. Kayla struggled to keep up, her legs weak, but his hand never loosened. He guided her around roots, across narrow dips, through dense shadows. Every few steps, he glanced back at her, checking, assessing, without slowing. It should have made her uneasy. Instead, she felt a strange sense of safety pressing against her fear. The storm thickened overhead, wind whipping through the branches. Thunder rumbled a warning. She strained to hear the hunters, but the forest swallowed distant sounds. She didn't know if they were behind or ahead anymore. Kayla's voice was barely breath. If they find us. They won't. His tone was calm. Certain. A certainty that felt unnatural. Not while I'm here. She narrowed her eyes. You talk like they're afraid of you. He didn't answer. Which was an answer in itself. They reached the edge of a creek, water rushing fast from the storm. He stopped beside her, scanning the forest behind them. Kayla saw his jaw tense again, the flicker of gold intensifying in his eyes. Rain plastered his hair to his forehead, darkening his features. For the first time, she noticed the faint, nearly invisible tattoo at the side of his neck, an ancient symbol, wolf-shaped, carved in thin lines. Her breath hitched. You're. He cut her off gently. Later. The urgency in his voice wasn't harsh, but it left no room for argument. He stepped into the creek, water rising around his boots, and held out his hand again. She hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in his. The current nearly pulled her under, but his grip steadied her. They moved across the water, fighting the current. Halfway through, Kayla's knees buckled again. Exhaustion clawed up her spine. Her vision blurred. He reached out fast, arm around her waist, pulling her tight against his chest. Heat radiated from him, seeping into her frozen skin. She gasped softly, not from fear this time, but from the overwhelming sensation of warmth, strength, and something she couldn't name. His voice dropped, barely audible over the storm. I've got you. The words wrapped around her like a promise. He lifted her effortlessly and carried her the rest of the way across the creek. His steps didn't falter once. When they reached the opposite bank, he set her down gently, hands lingering at her waist as if making sure she wouldn't collapse. She looked up at him, breathing unevenly. Why are you doing this? The forest quieted again. Even the storm seemed to pause. He studied her face, his expression shadowed with conflict. Because if they take you, he said slowly, everything changes. Kayla's heart stretched painfully in her chest. Everything? His eyes met hers, unshielded, intense. For me. A sound moved in the distance, faint but unmistakable, footsteps, fast and heavy. He exhaled sharply. We need to move. She clenched her jaw. I can keep going. He searched her face, assessing her resolve. After a moment, he nodded. Stay close. No matter what you hear. No matter what you see. Don't let go of my hand. She swallowed and nodded. He took her hand again, grip firm, and pulled her deeper into the forest. The path narrowed, shadows thickening, but he moved with precision, guiding her through every twist. The hunters' voices rose behind them. Kayla's pulse spiked, but she held on to him, trusting his certainty more than her own strength. As they ran, she felt something shift in the air. A presence. A force. It moved with him, surrounding him, almost alive. The forest responded, branches curling away from him, mist thickening at his back, hiding their trail. She finally understood. He wasn't just powerful. He wasn't just a wolf. He was something more. The alpha. Not of a pack she knew. Not of allies she trusted. But an alpha whose presence commanded the forest itself. She looked up at him again, breath shaky. "What are you?" He didn't look back, but his voice held the weight of truth he could no longer deny. "Your only chance tonight." The ground thundered behind them, the hunters breaking through the trees. Kayla tightened her grip on his hand. He pulled her forward, voice low, steady, and certain. "Stay with me. I'll get you out." His words held no doubt. Only promise. Only fate beginning. Only the alpha she wasn't supposed to meet, but somehow always belonged to. Kayla stood there in the rain, every breath tight and shaky in her chest, while the stranger's golden eyes held her in a way she wasn't prepared for. The forest seemed to fade around her. The storm softened. But inside her mind, everything cracked open at once, memories she had buried, scenes she never wanted to relive, scars that still pulsed under her skin. Because nothing about being found in the forest tonight was simple. Nothing about hearing her name on a stranger's lips felt safe. And nothing about him made it easy for her to breathe. She stared at him, unable to look away, but every second his eyes stayed on her, something old and bitter began to uncoil inside her. Not anger. Not fear. Something deeper, the cold ache of being seen for the first time in her life, and not knowing whether that was a blessing or a curse. The rain dripped from her hair, ran down her neck, and soaked into the torn fabric of her dress. She felt the weight of it dragging against her skin, but she didn't move. She couldn't. Because his gaze wasn't prying. It wasn't hungry. It wasn't the way men had looked at her during the ceremony preparations, like she was a prize to bind or a threat to tame. His eyes held something different. Recognition. Warning. And a strange, unspoken grief. "Why do you know my name?" she whispered, her voice barely carrying over the falling rain. She didn't expect him to answer. She didn't expect kindness. She didn't expect anything. Her entire life had taught her never to expect anything good. The first memory hit her so sharply she almost staggered. A young Kayla, no more than 8 years old, walking past a group of pack mothers in the village courtyard. She remembered the way their conversations had stopped the moment she appeared. The way their eyes tightened. The way they leaned closer to whisper, not quietly enough. "She's cursed. She'll bring ruin. She shouldn't even be near the other children." Kayla remembered pretending she didn't hear. She remembered walking faster, holding her small basket of herbs against her chest like a shield. She remembered her mother stepping out from behind their hut, face pale, eyes tired, forcing a smile as if she could erase the damage with warmth alone. "Come inside, sweetheart." Her mother had always tried. But the pack had always hated. And Kayla had learned early that silence protected her better than any wolf ever could. She blinked the memory away, but a second one followed immediately, sharper, darker. The night her mother died. Kayla had been 16. Smoke had filled the air from the elders' ritual fire. Her mother had been arguing with them for hours, voice breaking as she begged them not to brand Kayla as unstable. Kayla remembered the way her mother stood between her and the elders, trembling but unmovable. "If you mark her," she had cried, "you will doom her. Her power is not a curse, she just needs guidance." The elders hadn't listened. They never did. Kayla's mother collapsed 2 days later. Her heart gave out. The healers said it was illness, but the pack whispered the truth. She gave her life to shield the cursed girl. Kayla had carried that guilt like a second spine, sharp and unrelenting, every day since. Standing in the present, soaked in rain, staring at a stranger who somehow knew her name, she felt that guilt rise again, the familiar burn in her chest, the crushing sense that she didn't deserve safety or rescue, not from anyone. Not even from him. Her hands trembled at her sides. She stared down at them, at the faint shimmer beginning to glow beneath her skin. Even the stormlight seemed to bend toward it. Her power always came in moments like this. Moments when fear fought with fury. Moments when she couldn't push the memories away. She remembered the first time it happened. She had been 11. Just a child. The other young wolves had cornered her behind the training fields, 3 of them, all shift-ready, all towering over her. They loved daring each other to taunt her, call her names, shove her until she hit the ground. That day, they went too far. One of them shifted just enough for claws to break skin. She remembered the sting. The humiliation. The helplessness. Then she remembered the heat. Silver fire bursting from her palms. A ring of flames erupts around her. The training field lit up with a blaze so bright it painted the trees in shimmering white. No one was burned. But everyone was terrified. She remembered the screams. The way the boys tripped over themselves trying to escape her. The way the pack warriors rushed in, shouting orders and dragging her back home. They avoided her after that. All of them. Children. Adults. Elders. Warriors. Because silver fire didn't belong to their pack. It didn't belong to any pack. It belonged to prophecy. To bloodlines whispered about in fear. To ancient legends most wolves pretended weren't real. They didn't understand her power. So they feared it. Feared her. And they made sure she understood one truth above all. Power like hers was meant to be controlled. Owned. Buried. Kayla's breath hitched as the memories washed over her. All the moments she buried. All the parts of herself she learned to hide. She had grown up quiet because loud girls drew attention. She had grown up alone because friends were a luxury she was never allowed. She had grown up small, not because she was weak, but because shrinking was the only way to survive. She learned to move through her own home like a ghost. Learned to eat fast so she could leave the dining hall before the whispers started. Learned to lower her gaze whenever the elders passed by. The shame had settled into her bones. It shaped her voice, her posture, her choices. And now, standing before a stranger with eyes too sharp and too knowing, she felt every old wound reopening. Her voice cracked as she spoke, softer than she intended. Whatever you think you know about me, you're wrong. The stranger didn't blink. The faintest line formed between his brows, but not in judgment. It looked like grief. Like recognition. Like he understood her in a way no one ever had. Kayla, he said again, quieter this time. And the sound of her name in his voice made something twist deep in her chest. The next memory rose like cold water filling her lungs. The elder's chamber. The heavy scent of burning sage. The cruel alpha standing before her, the one chosen for her. The one she was meant to submit to at dawn. He was stronger than her. Older. Powerful. Cruel enough to enjoy the thought of breaking her. This marriage will bind your power, the elders had said. As long as you remain under his command, your gift cannot destroy us. Kayla had stared at them, numb. They talked about her like she was a weapon. A threat to be tamed. A burden to hand off to someone else. They never asked if she wanted it. They never cared. It wasn't about unity. It wasn't about tradition. It wasn't even about peace. It was about control. If she rejected the marriage, they would kill her. If she accepted it, she would lose herself. So she ran. And now, the pack was hunting her because no one escapes the marriage mark. No one disobeys the elders. No one with power like hers lives free. Kayla's breath shook as she looked back at the man before her. Every betrayal she had ever lived whispered a warning. Every scar told her to turn away. Every lesson taught her that men in power always took more than they gave. He was strong. Too strong. Wolves didn't move with the kind of quiet confidence he carried unless they were carved from authority itself. He wasn't afraid of her. Not even when her palms began to glow faintly. That alone made him dangerous. She stepped back, swallowing hard. "I don't know who you are," she said. "But I'm not going with you." The stranger didn't reach for her. He didn't threaten. He didn't even raise his voice. He simply lowered his gaze to the glowing silver on her skin, then lifted his eyes back to hers. "They should never have called you cursed," he said softly. "They were afraid of what they couldn't control." "That doesn't mean they were right." Her breath caught. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Not in 20 years. Not even her mother had dared to speak so openly. It felt dangerous, not because it hurt, but because she wanted to believe it. And wanting anything had always been the quickest path to pain. She clenched her hands, forcing the glow to fade. "You don't know me." His voice dropped, low and steady. "I know enough." For a moment, Kayla forgot how to breathe. Her heart pounded so hard she felt it in her throat. But then he added something that made her pulse jolt. "I know what it feels like to be hunted by your own people," he said. "And I know what it means to carry a power that terrifies everyone around you." Her eyes widened. He held her gaze without flinching. And for the first time, she wondered if she wasn't the only one with secrets. The storm had quieted to a thin restless drizzle by the time they left the ravine behind. Kayla walked beside him with a wary distance, even though every trembling step made her legs feel like collapsing. She kept her eyes forward, refusing to meet the gold glow of his. He didn't try to touch her again. He only walked just close enough that if she fell, he would reach her before the ground did. She hated that she felt safer with him there. She hated even more how the forest seemed to settle around them, as if recognizing him. As if the night itself bowed out of his way. He led her through a narrow path carved by ancient paws. Pine needles muffled their steps. The moon pushed through scattered clouds, pale and searching. She tasted iron on her tongue, the leftover blood from her fall. Her heartbeat was a quiet drum in her ears. His presence was a heavier one. Not threatening. Not gentle. Just undeniable. Like a tide she could never stop. He finally spoke when the trees thinned and cliffs rose ahead. His voice was calm but carried a weight that sent a shiver down her spine. "They need to reach the sanctum." He said it as if she already knew what it was. She didn't. She had never even heard the word spoken in her pack. Sanctum. It felt old. Forbidden. And something in her chest pulled toward the sound as if responding to a distant memory she had yet to live. She asked him why. He didn't answer. His jaw tightened the same way it had earlier, when he caught her and held her as if it pained him to do it. He walked faster, cloak soaked, boots sliding on the wet stones. She followed because she had no choice. Because the pack enforcers would soon find the ravine. Because she could feel them searching the forest, hungry for her scent. Because being alone was death. But she kept reminding herself that staying with him might be a different kind of danger. The kind that didn't kill instantly. The kind that slowly rewrote a person. When they reached the top of the cliffs, the night opened around them. Below, the valley slept beneath ribbons of mist. Above, the moon stretched across the sky like an unblinking eye. The air changed. Thicker. Colder. Charged with something that prickled against Kayla's skin. He slowed. She sensed the shift in him. Less controlled. More reverent. As if he were approaching a place that demanded respect even from an alpha. Ahead, the sanctum waited. It wasn't a building. Or a cave. It was an open grove carved into the stone itself. A half-circle of ancient pillars rose from the earth, each one cracked but standing firm. In the center lay an altar made of pale stone, smooth and glowing faint blue beneath the moon. Light moved through it like veins. Trees grew around the outer ring, their branches bending inward as if bowing in silence. A wind passed through them, carrying whispers Kayla couldn't understand. She stopped at the edge. She didn't want to move closer. Her breath caught. Her palms tingled with heat. The marks she had spent her entire life hiding pulsed faint under her skin. The same silver fire that ruined everything. The same fire that made the elders flinch whenever she passed. The same fire they wanted to cage through marriage. She curled her hands into fists and stepped back. But the moment she did, the altar brightened. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't gentle. The light surged like recognition. He turned toward her, eyes sharp with realization. She froze under the intensity. She wanted him to look away. To pretend he didn't see what the sanctum saw. But instead he stepped aside slightly, offering her the space as if he knew this place was not meant for him. He didn't speak. He didn't push. He simply waited. Kayla forced herself forward. One step. Then another. The runes carved into the stone pillars flickered when she passed. Shadows crawled away from her. The air warmed. A hum vibrated in the ground. Something old was waking, and it was responding to her the way a locked door responds to the right key. She felt the pull deep in her bones, like a memory stirring beneath layers of fear. Then a low crack echoed through the grove. The statue near the altar shifted. Dust fell from its surface. A faint silver glow seeped through the lines. She stumbled backward. Her heart lodged in her throat. She had no reason to fear stone, but she feared everything that reminded her she was different. Wrong. Marked. He reached out as if to steady her but stopped short, letting her find balance on her own. She didn't know whether to be grateful or angry. Another crack. The statue opened slightly, enough to release a thin thread of warm air. The runes swirled brighter. The altar pulsed. The sanctum reacted to her like a living thing. She whispered that she didn't want this. That she didn't understand it. That she was nobody. But the sanctum didn't care for her doubts. She heard the fragment of a prophecy before she even realized it was a voice. It wasn't spoken aloud. It rose through the stone, through the wind, through the air vibrating around her. A whisper older than her pack. Older than any alpha. A whisper that filled her bones. Child of the flame. Bearer of the mark. Lost Luna of the dawnbreak. Her breath shook. She stepped back again. The air trembled with her. She didn't want to hear more. She didn't want another destiny forced onto her. First a marriage. Now this. She had fought so hard just to survive, and now something ancient was telling her she was meant to be more than she ever wanted to be. She said she wasn't a savior. Not anyone's chosen anything. She said she was barely holding herself together. Her voice cracked, soft and raw. The sanctum responded with another pulse of light, steady and calm, as if disagreeing gently. He moved closer, but still kept a respectful distance. His voice softened, rough around the edges with emotion he didn't let show earlier. He said that destiny doesn't care if someone feels ready. It comes for them all the same. But his eyes said something else. Something quieter. He was afraid for her. Or afraid of what she might become. Or maybe afraid of the role he would have to play now that the sanctum had chosen her. She asked him why she was here. Why her life had been marked by fear and rejection. Why her power felt like a curse that only hurt people. He didn't answer at first. The silence between them filled the entire grove. Then he told her something she wasn't prepared to hear. That the elders feared her not because she was dangerous, but because she was destined to outrank them. That the silver fire she carried was ancient and rare, born only once in many generations. That her mother died protecting her from those who wanted to extinguish that power before she grew into it. That the forced marriage was not tradition. It was a cage. A way to break her spirit and bind what they could never control. Kayla steadied herself against a pillar. The runes glowed silver beneath her palm. She pulled away quickly, as if burned. She couldn't process everything at once. Her chest felt too tight. Her thoughts kept tripping over each other. The ground under her feet no longer felt stable. He stepped closer. His voice dropped, low and steady. He said she didn't have to believe the prophecy. But she needed to understand one thing. Those who hunted her were terrified, because the moment she embraced her power, no force on the continent could contain her. Not the elders. Not the cruel alpha she escaped. Not even him. She looked at him then. Really looked. And for the first time, she saw something in his eyes that wasn't authority or mystery or danger. She saw fear. Not of her hurting him. But of losing her. It didn't make sense. He barely knew her. But the emotion was there, sharp and real, buried beneath guilt and responsibility and something he didn't want to name. The wind rose. The trees bowed deeper. The altar brightened again, urging her forward. She didn't want to move. She didn't want to be claimed by another destiny. She didn't want her life to be shaped by forces that never asked for her consent. She wanted to be free. She wanted to choose for herself. Yet when she closed her eyes, she felt the sanctum calling, not to bind her, but to reveal her truth. To show her what she had been denied her entire life. To give her the answers no one else would. Her body trembled. Her breath shook. She took one step toward the altar. He whispered her name. Not with command. Not with authority. With a softness that felt like an anchor in a world tilting beneath her feet. Kayla. Her name sounded different in his voice. Like it mattered. Like she mattered. She opened her eyes. The altar glowed brighter, waiting. And with a deep, unsteady breath, Kayla stepped into her destiny. Kayla had barely placed her palm on the glowing altar when the night split open. A crack of branches snapped like a warning shot. The air tightened around the sanctum. The trees shuddered as if bracing for impact. Kayla flinched at the sudden shift, and he instantly stepped forward, eyes brightening with a sharp golden flare. His body tensed, shoulders rising, stance widening. The sanctum had called to her, but now something else was coming. A low growl rolled across the clearing. Then another. Then several more. Kayla's pulse stuttered. Shadows rushed between the trees, fast, hungry shapes weaving through the underbrush with predatory precision. The scent of wet fur and blood hit her nose. Her breath caught cold in her throat. Rogue wolves. At least 5. Maybe more hiding behind the line of trees. They didn't hesitate. They charged into the sacred clearing as if the sanctum meant nothing, as if ancient law held no weight. Mud kicked up behind their paws. Their eyes gleamed with feral intent. Their jaws snapped in feverish hunger. The alpha beside her let out a deep growl that vibrated through the stone beneath their feet. Golden light flared across his irises. His fingers curled into fists. He stepped into the path of the rogues with a force that made the air tremble. But even he, with all his power and presence, couldn't stop them from surrounding the grove in a matter of seconds. Kayla's breath came in thin gasps. She felt the heat rising in her palms again, unwanted, uncontrolled. Silver sparks flickered beneath her skin, warning her that panic was a dangerous trigger. Not here. Not now. She forced her hands behind her, gripping the edge of the altar to ground herself. But the sanctum responded, its light shifting, rippling like breath beneath her touch. The rogues saw it. They smelled the magic. And they blamed her instantly. A snarl tore from one of them, its voice rough and ragged but unmistakably shaped by speech. She activated it. She awakened the forbidden place. She is the danger. She must be taken or destroyed. Kayla felt the words slice deep, not because they were new, but because they were the same words she had heard her entire life. Spoken by elders. By pack members. By anyone who looked at her and saw only the fire she couldn't control. She closed her eyes for half a second. The old fear threatened to swallow her. But when she opened them again, the alpha had shifted slightly, planting himself between her and the advancing wolves. His voice dropped to a warning growl that held command, authority, and a silent promise of violence. He told them to leave. His pack had claimed the right to this land tonight. They had no business here. The rogues didn't care. One lunged. He met it with brutal speed, hands snapping out, catching the wolf by the throat, throwing it across the clearing with effortless precision. The body hit a pillar, cracking stone. Another wolf sprang from the right. He blocked with his forearm, twisted, and sent it crashing into the dirt. Kayla watched him move like a force of nature, silent and deadly. But the rogues weren't retreating. They were multiplying. More shapes poured in from the shadows. 3. 5. 7. Too many to count in the frantic blur of motion. And then a cold voice broke through the chaos. A new figure stepped into the clearing, broad-shouldered, draped in dark armor, carrying the scent of dominance and ambition. A rival alpha. His presence snapped the air tight. Even the rogues paused as he approached the sanctum with slow, deliberate steps. He looked at Kayla first. Then at the altar behind her. His eyes narrowed into a calculating stare, as if measuring her worth, or her threat. He accused her without hesitation. He declared her a trespasser. A curse. A forbidden spark that should never have been allowed to live. He demanded she be handed over for execution. The sacred grove had awakened because of her. That alone was enough to condemn her. Kayla's knees weakened. She had survived storms and escapes and prophecy. But there was something uniquely cruel about hearing her fate delivered so calmly, as if she were nothing more than a broken tool to be disposed of. The alpha she had followed stepped closer to her, shoulders shifting in a subtle but unmissable shield. His voice dropped to a dangerous rumble. He told the rival alpha to leave. The sanctum had recognized her. That was reason enough to protect her. But the challenge had already been cast. The rogues surged forward. Chaos erupted. The grove exploded into movement, wolves snarling, claws tearing into soil, ancient pillars shaking with the weight of battle. Kayla backed toward the altar, heart hammering so loud she could barely hear anything else. She tried to shift, desperate to defend herself. But the fear strangled her wolf. Her body wouldn't change. Her claws wouldn't form. Her bones refused to bend. The rival alpha saw her weakness. He ordered his wolves to take her. For a moment, the world snapped into slow motion. A rogue leapt toward her, jaws opening wide. She raised her hands instinctively. The silver fire surged forward, uncontrolled, spilling out in a sudden burst of heat. The air crackled. The wolf skidded away with a pained yelp, fur singed, eyes wide with terror. Everyone stopped. Even the alpha fighting for her froze to stare. Kayla's breath trembled. Her palms glowed with faint silver light. She felt the fire inside her simmering, ready to burn everything in reach. She shook her hands as if trying to extinguish it, but the flame pulsed beneath her skin. The rival alpha stepped back with a snarl. He accused her again. Her mere presence was a threat. Her power would ignite the entire forest. She was exactly what the elders warned she would become. Kayla's chest tightened. She wanted to shout that she didn't choose this. That she wasn't trying to destroy anything. That she didn't want her fire or her destiny or the prophecy that followed her like a curse. But her voice refused to come. The alpha she knew tore into the last rogue blocking his path and rushed toward her. His expression carried something raw. Fear for her. Anger at them. And a helplessness he didn't want her to see. He reached her just as the rival alpha barked a final command. Take her now. Wolves charged again. He pushed Kayla behind him, roaring so loudly the grove trembled. But the rogues overwhelmed from every direction. Their weight crashed into him, forcing him back. She reached for him, calling out his name for the first time. Their fingers brushed for a heartbeat. Then claws tore them apart. Kayla was dragged backward, her feet slipping across the wet stone. She struggled, the fire in her hands flaring again, but her panic smothered its strength. She twisted, kicked, clawed. But there were too many. Rough hands gripped her arms. Another wolf clamped its jaws near her shoulder, threatening a bite if she resisted. She saw him still fighting, shoving off attackers, teeth bared, golden eyes blazing with fury. But he was outnumbered. They pinned him down, pressing his face to the dirt, forcing him to watch as Kayla was pulled away from the sanctum. Someone shouted that she would bring destruction. That her power was a curse. That she should have been killed at birth. Another voice warned him directly. If you protect her, you lose your crown. If you choose her, your pack will turn against you. She is nothing but ruin. Kayla heard every word. She saw the way his jaw tightened. The way his eyes flickered with the weight of impossible choices. The way he struggled against restraints that cut into his skin. The way he strained toward her even when logic demanded he stay still. It broke something deep inside her. Because she realized something in that moment, something painful and unexpected. For the first time in her life, someone had stood between her and death. Someone had defended her without hesitation. Someone had chosen her safety over politics, tradition, and reputation. And now he might lose everything because of her. The rogues pulled her farther from the altar. Her bare feet dragged across the earth. The connection to the sanctum dimmed. The silver fire faded. Her palms cooled. Without the grove's power, she felt weaker. Smaller. Exposed. He called her name again. Raw. Desperate. Kayla twisted one last time, trying to see him. Golden eyes met hers across the clearing, filled with fury and sorrow and something she didn't dare name. Then a blow struck the side of her head. Her vision blurred. The world tilted. The last thing she saw was him rising to his knees, breaking free of one wolf, roaring her name with a sound that split the night open. Then everything went dark. The cave held a faint warmth, just enough to soften the chill left by the rain. The fire he built cracked quietly, its glow touching the rough stone walls and brushing over Kayla's damp skin. She sat near the entrance, listening to the rain outside as though each drop carried a memory she wished she could forget. The storm muffled the world, giving them a rare moment where no enemy stalked, no prophecy whispered, and no accusation chased her shadow. Just breath, fire, and a silence that felt too close. He watched her from the other side of the cave. He had removed his cloak, water dripping in slow trails from the hem. The faint orange light sharpened the angles of his jaw, revealed the exhaustion around his eyes, and softened again when he looked at her. He didn't speak at first. He let the silence breathe, as if he knew how fragile the moment was. Kayla kept her arms wrapped around herself, not for warmth but to hold together the tremor that kept moving through her. He finally stepped closer. You haven't said a word since we left the sanctum. She didn't look up. There wasn't anything to say. That isn't true. Her eyes flickered. Her voice was low, almost lost under the rain. Everything I touch becomes worse. You saw what happened back there. He moved another step until the firelight reached him fully. I saw you survive. I saw you stand your ground. That's what I saw. That's what you choose to see, she murmured. It isn't what's real. He paused, reading the tightness in her shoulders, the way her breath caught as if the truth clawed inside her. He knelt near the fire, but not too close to her, close enough that she could feel his presence if she wanted it, far enough that she could retreat without feeling cornered. Kayla, he said quietly, you're not the reason they attacked. You don't know that. I do. She shook her head and turned toward the cave entrance. Rain poured in silver sheets, and the air smelled like wet stone and pine. She stared into the storm as if expecting someone from her past to walk out of it. Someone to accuse her. Someone to blame. He let a breath leave him slowly. I know what you're thinking. You don't, she whispered, because you didn't grow up being told you were wrong just for existing. His jaw tightened. No. I grew up being told I wasn't enough. She looked over her shoulder, curiosity cutting through her pain. The fire shifted with a soft hiss, throwing faint light over the regret in his eyes. He spoke again, voice steady but weighted. I hesitate in a fight. I always have. My father called it weakness. My pack called it caution. But one night it cost someone their life. His gaze drifted to the fire. She trusted me to protect her. And I waited. I thought there was time. He clenched his fist. There wasn't. Kayla watched him quietly now, the storm forgotten behind her. His confession hung between them like a torn banner, both raw and unpolished. He had never shared that with anyone, the truth was written in the way the words scraped out of him. He drew a breath. I tell you this because I don't want you thinking you're alone in what haunts you. She studied him, unsure if the ache in her chest came from his pain or her own. You hesitated and lost someone, she said softly. I act without thinking and burn everything around me. We're not the same. But we're both marked by what we fear most. His eyes lifted, meeting hers through the firelight. And we're both running from it. Kayla swallowed hard. He was right. She hated how much he could see, how easily he could name what she hadn't said aloud. She lowered her gaze to her hands resting on her knees, hands she kept hidden, hands she feared. Her fingers curled slowly. I want to show you something, she said. He didn't move, but the shift in his focus told her she had his full attention. She turned her palms upward, slowly, as if exposing a wound. The firelight revealed faint scars running along her fingers, thin, pale lines like cracks in porcelain. She let out a breath, and a faint shimmer flickered beneath her skin. A small flame, silver, soft, trembling, rose from her palm. Not hot. Not wild. Controlled, only for a moment. This is why they fear me, she said. This is why they want me contained. They think power like this means destruction. He leaned closer, not touching her, but near enough that she could feel the change in his breath. I don't see destruction. That's because you don't understand what it does. Her voice thinned. I don't always control it. It reacts to emotion. Fear, anger, anything sharp enough. I've burned things without meaning to. I've hurt people. His voice lowered. Did you kill anyone? No, her throat tightened. But I could have. He let the words settle. No judgment. No step back. Just presence. She closed her hand, extinguishing the flame, and lowered her gaze. He reached out slowly, giving her enough time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. His fingers touched her cheek gently, brushing away a raindrop or perhaps a tear. Her breath hitched. You keep waiting for me to be afraid of you, he said. Or to use you. Or to control you. I'm not here for any of that. She looked up again, her eyes searching his as if they held a trap she hadn't found yet. Then why are you here? He didn't hesitate. Because I see you. Her pulse quickened. His touch stayed, light but grounding. Her body leaned an inch closer to him before she caught herself and drew back, a small inhale betraying the conflict inside her. She wasn't ready. Not for this closeness. Not for what it meant. He pulled his hand away slowly, respecting the distance she needed even though something tightened in his expression when he did. A cold breeze pushed into the cave, carrying the scent of wet earth and pine. The fire trembled. Kayla wrapped her arms around herself again, but the shiver wasn't from the cold. He stood and fed another piece of wood into the flames, giving her space even though his presence still filled the room with an unspoken gravity. She watched him silently. The strength in his movements. The way he kept himself contained, controlled. He wasn't a man seeking power. He was a man trying not to break. Rain loosened outside, falling lighter now. Kayla let her gaze drift to the storm's fading edge. Everything is different now, she whispered. The sanctum. The runes. The prophecy. They all respond to me. And I don't know why. You don't have to know yet. But they do, she said. Everyone else thinks they have answers. Except me. He approached again, but slower this time, respecting the uncertainty in her eyes. He crouched near her, enough that she could feel the warmth from his body if she allowed it. You've been forced to survive your entire life. Forced to obey. Forced to hide. Now something in this world finally recognizes you, and you think you aren't allowed to question it? I don't trust prophecies. You don't trust people, he corrected. Not prophecies. Her lips parted, but no words came out. He was right again. Too right. He leaned closer, voice low. Kayla, I don't need you to trust the world. I only need you to trust me. Her breath faltered. The fire crackled once. She looked away, her pulse loud in her ears. I don't know how. Then let me show you, he said softly. One choice at a time. She closed her eyes. A small, trembling breath escaped her. She wasn't ready to give him an answer, not yet. Trust was a dangerous thing. Trust got people killed. Trust burned villages. Trust ruined lives. But his voice held no demand. Only invitation. Only patience. The rain softened into mist. The fire warmed the cave in a steady rhythm. And the two of them sat there, close, but not touching, caught in a fragile moment where past pain met the possibility of something new. Kayla opened her eyes. She didn't answer him in words. She simply stayed. And he understood. He sat beside her, letting the silence settle. Not forcing anything. Not claiming anything. Just presence. Just breath. Just the quiet, unspoken truth that their worlds were shifting, aligning, drawing them into something neither fully understood. The storm outside faded entirely, leaving only the echo of water dripping from the trees. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel hunted. She didn't feel alone. And for the first time, he allowed himself to hope he wouldn't fail again. He sensed the change before Kayla did. A stillness, sharp as a held breath, settled over the forest. The air thinned. The silence tightened. And even though they walked side by side, something in the rhythm of the night shifted in a way that made his posture stiffen and her heartbeat stumble. He didn't say anything at first. That alone was enough to warn her. Then she heard it, soft footfalls ahead, too deliberate to belong to wildlife. A faint glow through the trees. Voices woven between the wind. It didn't sound like an attack. It sounded organized. Waiting. She slowed without meaning to. He reached for her arm, steadying her, but she felt the tension hidden beneath his calm hand. Whatever lay ahead wasn't unexpected to him. That realization carved a small, sharp cut inside her. You knew someone was here, she whispered. His jaw shifted, that single motion betraying more truth than he intended to share. Before she could ask anything else, the forest opened into a clearing drenched in moonlight. Lanterns burned in a perfect circle. Dozens of wolves and elders gathered beneath bowed branches. Their faces carried a silence too heavy to be welcoming. Kayla felt the trap close the moment she stepped into the light. Her instinct screamed to turn back, but eyes locked onto her from every angle, some curious, some afraid, some already filled with judgment she had done nothing to earn. The air pressed down on her like a weight meant to force her to kneel. He stood close, but even his presence didn't soften the tension. She didn't understand why he brought her here. She didn't understand why the crowd looked at her as if they had been waiting for this very moment. Someone stepped forward, an elder wrapped in ceremonial cloth, his expression carved from cold stone. He lifted a staff tipped with a faintly glowing crystal. The clearing quieted. Welcome, he said, but the word had no warmth. We bring you here under the promise of peace. Kayla's stomach tightened. Peace was the last thing that lived in his voice. Before she could speak, another figure stepped out of the circle, a woman with sharp eyes and a knowing smirk. She studied Kayla with the kind of satisfaction that only comes from revealing a secret. "There she is," the woman announced. "The Flameborn." The words struck the clearing like a weapon. Every wolf flinched. Some stepped back. Others stepped forward. Fear rippled through the crowd like a contagion. Kayla's breath caught. She didn't know this woman. She had never seen her, never spoken to her, never crossed her path. But the stranger spoke her hidden power as if she had carried it in her palm. The elder raised a hand. "Silence." The crowd obeyed instantly. He turned toward Kayla with a stare that felt more like accusation than inquiry. "Is it true?" he asked. "Are you the one whispered of in the firemark prophecies?" Kayla's throat tightened. "I don't even know what you're talking about." The woman laughed. A cruel, triumphant sound. "She knows. She hides it. Her flames nearly destroyed her own training field when she was younger." Gasps broke across the clearing. Kayla staggered back a step. Her lungs felt too small to hold the panic rising. She looked at him, the only person she trusted even a little, and found him staring at the ground, fists clenched. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't confused. He knew. Her stomach twisted. "You knew they would say this," she whispered. He looked up, eyes shadowed with something like regret. "I didn't know it would happen now. It wasn't enough. Not even close." The elder slammed his staff against the earth. The crystal blazed. "You bring instability. Fear. Chaos." His voice grew harder. "The council has decided." Kayla felt the words before she heard them. "You are too dangerous to remain free." The crowd murmured, agreeing instantly. Some nodded with relief. Others stared at her like she was already a monster. The elder continued, "You must be restrained, or exiled beyond the borders where your power can do no harm." Kayla's heart pounded. "I haven't done anything." "That is the problem," the woman hissed. "You don't have to do anything. Your existence alone invites destruction." The elder turned to him. "And you? You brought her here. Why?" His expression hardened. "She needed protection." A ripple of shock moved through the wolves. The elder's eyes narrowed. "Or perhaps you are blinded by something else." Kayla watched him, searching his face for a sign that he would fight for her. For a sign that she hadn't been foolish to trust him, even a little. But he hesitated. Just a moment. Just long enough for the world to tilt. Long enough for her hope to crack. The elder nodded, as if the hesitation was all the proof he needed. As expected. The woman stepped forward, voice rising. "He cannot think clearly around her. The Flameborn was never meant to walk beside an alpha. She was meant to be contained. Contained. Like a threat. Like a curse." Kayla's hands trembled. She felt humiliation burn beneath her skin, hotter than the flame she feared. "You don't know me," she whispered. "None of you do." "But we know what you are," the woman shot back. The prophecy echoed through the clearing, a chant repeated by several voices. "The one with the mark. Child of the flame. Bearer of destruction." Kayla's chest constricted. Every whisper felt like a lash. Every stare felt like a chain. She had spent years hiding, years shrinking herself, years trying desperately not to become the nightmare they painted her as. But here they were again, people she had never hurt, never threatened, deciding her fate without even knowing her heart. The elder lifted the staff again. "Seize her." A wave of panic ripped through her. She stepped back, colliding with him. His hand found her arm, steadying her, but he didn't move to shield her. "Not yet." "Don't," she breathed. "Please. Don't let them." His grip tightened. He wanted to help. She could feel it in the way his breath hitched, in the tension running through his body. But the wolves were closing in. His pack. His people. The ones who expected him to obey without question. "Kayla," he whispered, voice strained, "just stay calm." Calm. While they condemned her. While they advanced with shackles made of rune steel. While her entire life teetered between exile and imprisonment. Something inside her cracked. "No," she whispered. "Not again." The first wolf lunged. The heat in her palms surged. Her fear snapped into something sharper, something that demanded to be heard. The ground trembled beneath her bare feet. Sparks burst along her skin. The air around her shivered as if recognizing the power she had spent years fighting. The elder shouted, "Stop her." But it was too late. Her control shattered. Flames erupted, not red, not gold, but silver-white, bright enough to blind. They spiraled outward, lighting the edges of the clearing. Trees groaned as heat tore through the bark. The sky itself seemed to recoil. The wolf stumbled back, snarling in shock. He shielded his face, stunned, but didn't move away from her. Kayla stood in the center of the chaos, breath ragged, tears burning trails down her cheeks as the power she had always feared spilled free. "I didn't want this," she whispered, voice shaking. "I never wanted any of this." The elder shouted over the roaring flame, "She is the prophecy fulfilled. She must be stopped." Someone else screamed, "If she lives, we lose everything." The flames roared louder. She saw the fear in their faces. She saw the disappointment in his. She saw the truth of her life repeated again and again. She was the danger they believed she would become, even when she tried so hard not to be. The fire surged outward in a wave she didn't intend. Wolves jumped back, some slipping, some falling. The ground split open in places, steam rising from the cracks. She looked at him through blurred eyes. "I trusted you." He stepped forward, fighting the heat, his voice breaking. "Kayla, wait." She shook her head. Her heart couldn't bear another moment under their judgment. Not after everything she had survived. Then she ran. Through smoke, through fear, through shouts that blurred into nothing. The forest swallowed her again, but this time she didn't feel chased. She felt unleashed. Behind her, the clearing burned. The elders shouted orders. Wolves scrambled to contain the damage. But their voices faded as she pushed deeper into the night, farther from the place that demanded she kneel. The flames flickered behind her like a final warning. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Not after realizing the truth. The world had made its choice. Now she would make her. Night falls heavy and unnatural, swallowing the forest in a bruised shade of violet. The wind sours. Leaves curl. Shadows ripple as if alive. Then the first beast steps out. A creature of bone and smoke, its eyes two pits of red hunger. Another follows. Then another. An army of lost things, shaped by dark magic and hatred older than any pack. The wolves who had condemned Kayla moments before freeze. Their courage drains with every hiss from the creatures. A shudder goes through the ground, warning of something worse approaching. Behind the beasts, the rival alpha emerges. His presence twists the air. Magic coils around him, unnatural, stolen, reckless. He lifts his hand, and the beasts bow to him like loyal nightmares. Wolves shift. Claws clash against ancient bone. The scent of fear cuts through the clearing. And in the panic, one truth becomes clear. The true enemy was never Kayla. It was the darkness hunting her. The darkness she was born to end. The battle rages, brutal and frantic. And then everything stops. A single breath of heat rolls through the clearing. Soft at first, then rising, then blazing. Kayla steps out of the smoke. Her cloak is torn. Her hair is wild. Moonlight slides over her skin like silver water. Flame flickers behind her ribs with every breath she takes. She is calm. Too calm. Wolves part instinctively, sensing the shift. Even the beasts hesitate, recognizing a power older than theirs. No more hiding. No more running. No more begging anyone to understand her. She walks toward the battlefield, eyes steady, jaw set, body glowing with ember light. Every step sounds like a promise. I am done being your fear. I am done being your burden. I am done being your sacrifice. The rival alpha lifts his hand to strike. Kayla lifts hers first. A ring of silver fire bursts outward, circling her like a living crown. The ground pulses. The air trembles. Heat rises so sharply the shadows flee from her. Her palms ignite, no burning, no pain, just raw, pure power finally set free. Wolves stagger back as the fire spreads across her skin in lines of molten silver. It moves like it knows her. Like it chose her. Kayla closes her eyes. Something ancient unlocks. A heartbeat that isn't hers thunders from the earth. The trees bow. The sky brightens though night still reigns. Flame wraps her limbs, spiraling up her body, forming armor of light. Not wild. Not destructive. Controlled. Aligned. Awakened. The rival alpha curses under his breath, realizing too late. He never wanted her as a sacrifice. He feared her as a weapon. Kayla opens her eyes again. They burn silver white. The battlefield falls still. Every creature waits to see what she has become. A whisper reaches her. Not from the forest. Not from the enemy. From everywhere. A chorus rising through blood and bone. Rise, daughter of flame. Their voices echo through her mind, gentle, steady, powerful. Not demanding obedience. Offering inheritance. You were not meant to kneel. You were not born to be hunted. Your destiny is not bondage. It is rebirth. Light gathers around her shoulders like hands lifting her upright. The fire steadies into a glow that feels like truth. Kayla exhales, and the air brightens. For the first time in her life, she feels whole. Not cursed. Not feared. Chosen. She steps forward, every movement echoing with the weight of her lineage. No one controls this fire. No one owns this birthright. Not the council. Not the rival alpha. Not even fate. The rival alpha laughs, brittle and desperate. Power doesn't make you a leader. Control does. He lunges. Kayla doesn't move. The fire moves for her. Silver flames burst from the earth, cutting his path, forcing him back. The beasts snarl, circling her, waiting for a command she will never give them. She stares at the rival alpha, calm, unshaken. This ends tonight. He bares his teeth. You think you're my equal? Kayla steps closer. No. I am your reckoning. Before he can strike again, a new sound tears the night. A growl, deeper than any wolf. A rumble that shakes the clearing. Something massive shifts in the darkness behind him. Wolves stop fighting. Beasts turn their heads. Even the rival alpha hesitates. An even older threat rises from the shadows. A creature shaped by the same magic that awakened Kayla's power. But twisted, corrupted, ruinous. Its eyes glow molten gold. Its mouth drips with smoke and hunger. Not enemy. Not ally. A force born of prophecy. And it has come for her. The rival alpha stumbles back, realizing too late that he was never the true master here. Kayla squares her shoulders. Fire gathers in her palms. The ground vibrates beneath her feet as she faces the towering monstrosity. The flames whisper around her. Claim your power. Claim your destiny. Claim your world. Kayla lifts her head. No fear. No hesitation. Just fire. And the battle for everything begins. The battlefield still smolders. Ash drifts through the air like slow-falling snow. The ground trembles with the memory of power unleashed. Kayla stands alone in the center of the ruined clearing, firelight fading from her palms, breath shaking, eyes fixed on the darkness where the ancient creature vanished. Smoke curls around her ankles. The wolves watch her with a mix of awe and hesitation. No one moves. No one speaks. The night holds its breath. Her heart beats hard against her ribs, torn between triumph and terror. She saved them, yet she stands as the most feared force among them. And somewhere in that silence, the questions begin to echo. Would you have stepped toward her? Or stepped back with the others? Would you have chosen her, or feared what she has become? She looks down at her hands. The faint glow lingers like a bruise of light beneath her skin. Power she never asked for, but power she cannot abandon now. Is she their salvation? Or the warning the prophecy whispered? The fire inside her whispers its own truth, soft, uncertain, honest. Am I the hero they need, or the disaster they fear? The night gives no answer. If this tale stirred something inside you, a pulse, a spark, a whisper that begged for more, then follow the flame. Subscribe to Floxy's Shifter Romance Tales. Because here, we tell stories that breathe fire. Stories of claws, shadows, destiny, and hearts brave enough to burn. If Kayla's journey called to you, stay close. The fire is only beginning. The moon hangs low over the ravaged clearing. Smoke rises in thin, wavering lines. The wolves remain where they stand, silent, stunned, unable to shape words around what they witnessed. Kayla stands at the center of it all. Her hair windswept. Her palms faintly glowing. Her eyes sharp with a courage she never believed she had the right to claim. The last echoes of the battle fade into the trees. The enemy is gone, driven back by a power no prophecy fully understood. But victory comes with the weight of truth. She is alone. Set apart. Changed. And every pair of eyes on her knows it. The alpha steps forward quietly, slow, deliberate, almost reverent. His cloak is torn. Blood stains the edges. But his gaze never wavers from her. Kayla, he says softly, as if the name itself is a vow he is afraid to break. She does not turn. Her breath hitches, betraying her turmoil. He notices. He always notices. You saved them, he says. You saved all of us. Her jaw tightens. They still fear me. He takes one more step. Close enough to feel her trembling. Close enough for the heat of her magic to brush his skin. I don't, he says. The words hit her harder than any prophecy. Harder than any rejection she ever carried. She finally looks at him, eyes shining with fire and emotion. You hesitated, she whispers. When they condemned me, you hesitated. The truth hangs between them like a blade. He exhales, raw and unguarded. I did. And I will regret that until my last breath. A quiet moment. Pain. Honesty. Possibility. But I'm here now, he says. And I choose you. Not because of your power. But because of your heart. Kayla looks around the clearing. At the wolves watching. At the destruction she caused. At the destiny that nearly crushed her. She thinks of the girl she once was, the cursed child, the outcast, the unwanted flame. That girl is gone. What stands here now is something forged in fire and loss. A woman who survived everything meant to break her. And she knows the truth. She cannot return to who she was. And she refuses to become what they feared. She lifts her chin. No apology. No shrinking. No doubt. I won't be caged, she says. I won't be controlled. But I won't run anymore either. Her voice softens, but the strength remains. If you stand with me, you stand with all of me. He nods once. Steady. Unshaken. Then I stand. A cold wind sweeps the clearing. The first hint of sunrise bleeds along the horizon. The wolves slowly bow their heads, not in fear, but in acknowledgement. The prophecy spoke of fire, and destruction, and rebirth. But it never said what she must become. It never said who she had to choose. It never said she couldn't rewrite its ending. With the alpha at her side, Kayla takes her first step toward the rising sun. A step not of destiny, but of choice. The flames inside her dim to a warm, steady glow. Not burning her. Not consuming the world. Guiding her. A new Luna. A new beginning. A legend born not from prophecy, but from survival. And so ends the tale of Kayla, the flame-born girl who refused to bow, refused to break, refused to be defined by fear. She burned her fate into a new shape, one chosen, not forced. If Kayla's journey set your heartbeat racing, if her fire pulled you deeper into the shadows of this world, don't let the flame die here. Subscribe to Floxy's Shifter Romance Tales for more stories that ignite, more worlds that claw their way into your imagination, more heroines who rise from the ashes and refuse to bow. Click follow. Turn on notifications. And step into the next tale waiting in the dark. The moon is rising again. Don't miss what comes next.